is Minke. I'm a postdoc researcher with Nelson Mandela University, and I'm just going to be sharing some of my PhD research. Cool, so I looked at boat-based whale watching tourism using Plettenberg Bay as a case study. Boat-based whale watching is the fastest growing coastal and marine tourism industry globally, and this was true pre-COVID, and I'm pretty sure it's true post-COVID as well. There has been a growing concern with regards to the impacts of this tourism activity on the animals, and as such, a lot of research, including my PhD, has been focused on the impacts of the activity on the animals and the environment. And the social aspects, such as tourist satisfaction, their expectations, the perception of the activity can be disregarded. Not disregarded, but not as the focus of research. We know that measures of sustainability, so economics, ecological and social aspects do not operate in isolation, and we can balance tourist satisfaction with ecological protection. So operators are able to minimize the impact on the animals as well as on their income if they understand the tourists' expectations and satisfactions and are able to provide meaningful wildlife experiences that will respect the natural environment. So in South Africa, the whale watching industry was formalized in 1998, and a good set of regulations were put in place, and it was viewed as one of the most sustainable globally, which is amazing for South Africa. You need a permit in order to operate and even advertise boat-based whale watching. There are regulations in place that govern interactions with the animals. That's quite a large chunk of the permit regulations. There are some aspects that cover the social aspects, including expectation management and pre-trip briefings. When I started my PhD back in 2018, there was no industry research looking at any aspect of the industry. And we know that when tourist expectations and their values are unknown, it can weaken operators' attempts to provide these meaningful interactions, either through onboard education or just through the encounters with the animals. And so the question was, what do tourists coming to Plettenberg Bay want out of their boat-based whale watching trips? So the scariest study species, the human. I did questionnaires. We did 2 past questionnaires. So the first part was before the trip. The second part was after the trip. We looked at their motivations and their expectations and how their expectations align or do not align with current regulations. We looked at pre-trip importance, so how important service factors as well as ecological factors were to tourists and how their trip performed on those same aspects. The importance and performance questions were closed-ended 5-point Likert scale questions, and we then did an importance performance analysis. I'm just going to throw out there, just in case there are satisfaction researchers out there, we know that we're measuring importance and performance and not directly looking at satisfaction, but we took satisfaction to be a function of the importance of a factor, and how the operator performed on that factor would be how satisfied the tourist was. This graph, we've got importance and performance on the bottom, and so anything where the importance of a factor to the tourist was higher than what the performance was, those are the factors that operators need to focus on in order to provide a better trip experience for tourists. So I managed to get 90 questionnaires, I say completed, some of them had blank spaces, which is very frustrating. COVID hit, and so we had great intentions for a magnificent sample size, and unfortunately we didn't quite hit that. Of the 90 tourists who completed questionnaires, 58 of those people were coming for their first whale and dolphin watching trip. So top 3 reasons that tourists came to do a boat-based whale watching trip. Well, they're interested in dolphins, they're interested in whales, and they want to learn about the natural environment and the species that live there. When we looked at their expectations, you can see that most of their desire for distance, there was some who were super excited to touch whales and dolphins, which is illegal in South Africa, but most of the people were happy to get to the legal distance of 50 meters or further away, which is really encouraging. As far as how long they wanted to stay, just over half were happy to stay the legal limit of 20 minutes or shorter, and just under half wanting to stay longer with these animals. 30% wanted to encounter mother-calf whale pairs. This is illegal in South Africa. You are not allowed to get within 300 meters of mother-calf pairs, and 47% of the tourists did in fact want to get closer than that. So we see that there are some aspects where tourists are happy to, and this is not with us educating the tourists. This is just their natural instinct or their expectations of their trip based on what they've seen on websites, David Attenborough and the David Attenborough experience. So when we did the importance performance analysis, you can see there's really, none of the factors really are glaringly obviously in need of some work. But if we look at the environmental factors, we've got variety of species seen, behavior of species seen, and the sea conditions as needing improvement. And these are all out of operator control, which is really interesting. When we look at the service factors involved that are needing some improvements, commitment to the environment by crew, the condition of the vessel, information provided, and safety procedures on the boat. Of those, only safety was significant when we did a gap analysis. So what are the management interventions that we should be looking at given these results? One, a big one, is expectation management. We need to ensure that the tourists that are coming to do these activities, not only in Plet but throughout the coastline, understand that there are regulations in place. They're in place to protect the animals and ensure the sustainability of the activity. And having done an analysis on website advertising of operators in South Africa, we can definitely see that a lot of the advertising is breaching whales, surfing dolphins. And so it's not surprising that the areas that tourists are highlighting as needing improvement is that they want to see majestic behaviors. What they often will get is a whale or a dolphin just traveling along the coastline. In the case of a whale, you'll see the blow as they exhale, but that's not quite the expectation when you look at the websites and you see these really incredible behaviors that you rarely do get. So expectation management is a big one, through advertising, through on the website, in the pre-trip briefing as well. It needs to be made clear that what we're going to do is try and get as many as we can. They're wild animals. There is no guarantee that you'll in fact see anything, but we're hoping to make this an incredibly special trip that will teach you about the marine environment, that will highlight historic landmarks along the coastline, that will talk to you about the pressures that the ocean is facing. So we need to kind of diversify these trips, that they're not focused, the satisfaction of tourists is not focused on getting close to whales and dolphins and seeing those incredible behaviors. So that links a little bit into education. One of the reasons tourists want to be on these trips is to learn more, and they're highlighting that education is a part that is needing improvements. We need to be creating really engaging trips. I was trained as a guide, so before I did my PhD, I worked in the industry. We have to go through a course, but the course covers, biology and kind of the standard dry stuff, but it doesn't teach you how to engage with people. I could stand up here and spout all sorts of facts about whales and dolphins, and that's great. But if I'm standing here talking really dry and plain, I have in fact been told while guiding on a boat, does anybody have any questions? And a person standing next to me saying, no, I wasn't listening to you. So there's education, there's talking facts and figures, but there is a need to change education into interpretation and really engaging with tourists. Safety was highlighted for a lot of people. This is their first time out, potentially on a boat and potentially far from shore. And the sea can be a really scary place. And especially when there's a high turnover of trips, the first thing operators drop is the pre-trip briefing. And that is essential for people to feel safe, to understand that the boat is SAMHSA certified. You're not going to crash and sink the whale. We shouldn't be getting close enough for a whale to breach on your boat. So all these things need to be, it seems a bit silly, but for people who have never been out to sea, it is a really intimidating place. Even just having a boat with neat, clean deck, all the latches in working order. There's nothing more intimidating than going over a wave, not a whale, sorry, and one of the hatches just pops open. It just doesn't give it a good impression. So definitely safety and just general organization of the boat can do with some improvement. So kind of just in closing, majority of the tourists, I've obviously highlighted the negatives and where management can intervene there, but majority of the tourists really love their trip. They are satisfied with the experience, and Plet is a gorgeous place to go whale watching. Yeah, there were many first-timers to the industry there. There are definitely advantages for operators to align their beliefs with tourist realities. So you really need to understand what tourists want and how you can either change how you're offering your trip or how you're advertising your trip so that what you're allowed to do and what tourists want to do can be aligned. We need to look at improving the long-term sustainability there and integrating tourist desires with ecological resource management. Cool, thank you.